Also, coming up next, a U.S. military intelligence analyst and an author of a best-selling book, Putin's Playbook, and the host of Daily Intelligence Brief, is Rebekah Koffler. She was born in the Soviet Russia. Rebekah is a communism survivor, and her upcoming book is American Bolsheviks, the Persecution of Donald Trump and the Sovietization of America. Rebekah, thanks so much for joining us on Right Side
Of course.
Broadcasting Network.
Yes, Matt, it's a pleasure to join you and your audience today here on RSBN.
And it's great to have you here. You know, I met you along with, 20, 30 other patriots, supporters of President Trump at Trump Tower in New York, New York. And I interviewed Xi Van Fleet the other day, a person that escaped communism in China. And then I thought, wait a minute, I have Rebekah's information. And here we are. So, Rebekah, can you talk to us first about what that was like to be able to escape that terrible ideology called communism?
Absolutely. I'd like to preface it by saying that as a New Yorker, New York is my hometown right now. I'm just terrified with the fact that a communist from Uganda is about to become the mayor of New York City, right? And the reason it terrifies me, obviously, is because I lived it. And this is the country, Soviet Russia, that no longer exists because it was destroyed by socialism. And socialism is just the first step towards communism. And basically, the people who are trying to present it like it's a very nice system, everything is free. Well, it sounds fabulous, right? Who wouldn't want that? Free healthcare, free this, free that, buses, grocery stores. But when everything is free, nothing is available. Why is that? It's because under that system, once you remove the incentive to produce something and do a good job producing it, which is what socialism does, right? When you make stuff free, well, you're going to bother to do a good job. All the people who are owning businesses, whether it's grocery store or restaurants, they're going to move, right? And you can't, like in New York, you can't really mandate like they did in Russia, right? To continue producing in good quantities sufficient for everybody. So basically, we didn't have enough of anything because the Communist Party, the members of the Communist Party, which was approximately 10% of the population, they have the first dibs on everything. And so what ends up happening is the free healthcare. Here's what it means, Matt. My teeth were drilled without Novocaine. And if you want to know about torture, this is torture. They actually strap you in to make sure you don't kick the doctor. Why is there not enough Novocaine? Well, because the dentist wants to make sure that his family, his daughter, get enough. And so whatever a person is in charge of, whether it's selling, bread or grocery, it first, that person makes sure that your own family and friends have the first dib. And then there's just simply not enough for the rest of us. So there's lines for everything. There's never enough food. It was a nightmare. And this is why my mother always wanted me to go to America since I was a little girl.
And then on top of that, they get you with that, the emotional side of things. Like, hey, you get free this, free that. And once they get you there, then they want to hook your mind into their Marxist, terrible ideology. And so we're seeing that in some countries right now. We already know that China is like that now, but the point is, with their social credit score and all, but Ireland and the UK, they really love that. And I'm talking about not the people, just the people that are lording over them. And that's the only thing, to be real, Rebekah, the only thing that I care about the most when it comes to politics and all is that we simply keep the United States Constitution, the law of the land, and our freedoms here in this country. So what have you done, Rebekah, to help spread that word to the world?
Well, I speak and write regularly about censorship. Right now, what I feel right now, America is just turning into USSR 2.0. And what do I mean by that? I mean, you can no longer tell the truth. As you said, And when I just came here, this is one of the things that struck me. There's freedom to speak your mind. And it is only when you can speak the truth that a society can function as a normal society, which is the pillar of democracy, freedom of speech, right? So you mentioned the Trump Tower. There are so many New Yorkers, Matthew, who are actually Trump supporters and even MAGA people. And these are people are regular, like you and me. They're lawyers, they're doctors, they work in big like movie industries, even, right? But they cannot share at their places of work that they support Donald Trump because they would lose their job. Just think about that. That is so frightening to me. And that's how they get you, right? So if you can't, you cannot say things how they are. And that's how this whole lie spreads, right? That's how they're able to get you saying, oh, you're going to get everything for free. This is what Mamdani said. We're just going to get government-owned grocery stores. Well, guess what? On a good day in the Soviet Union, there were probably three things in the grocery store, right? Some sausage and maybe some sour milk. Yeah, again, because there's just not enough. The system, once you eliminate motivation, once you and the state starts assessing the fruits of your labor, people are just stopping to work and do a good job. We had a joke back in the Soviet Union. They pretend to pay us and we pretend to work. And that's how the whole country eventually collapses. Yes, it sounds great. And people think, oh, we're just going to maintain that same level of care, like whether it's healthcare, we're going to have all the same huge variety of products and like food but eventually it's not going to happen tomorrow or even next month or next year, but eventually the whole system collapses. This is why the Soviet Union collapsed. It doesn't exist anymore.
Exactly. You were talking about the movie industry before, and the great conservative and also actor, of course, Kevin Sorbo, posted the following on X yesterday. He took a quote from George Orwell. It says, quote, "The further a society drifts from the truth, the more it will hate those who speak it."
Absolutely.
Isn't that what's happening in some parts of maybe some parts of this country, definitely in other countries? We just don't want that happening here.
Correct, but it is already happening. The legacy media absolutely despises people who speak the truth, and it happens everywhere. But I have a personal experience with it since I am a former DIA intelligence officer. DIA is a military counterpart to CIA. We support the warfighter and we support our commander in chief in identifying foreign threats to U.S. homeland, right? And so I'm an expert on Putin's mindset and on Russian warfighting strategy, and I've been speaking for the past 4 years about the Russia-Ukraine conflict and how basically it is unwinnable for Ukraine. It's mathematically impossible. But because my expertise, and it's not just my opinion, I give actually an unclassified version of intelligence analysis. And why is it unwinnable? It's because from something that is called combat potential standpoint, which is calculated as the combination of the size of the armed forces, the size of the weapons arsenal, the military industrial complex's ability to scale up production through the duration of the conflict, and the defense economics ability to sustain that military industrial complex. Russia beats not only Ukraine, but entire Europe right now. And this is why Putin is not playing ball with us. But I effectively have been banned from the legacy media because I've said it for 4 years, whereas like the so-called experts, right, and who are not experts at all, right, all these various generals, they say, give more weapons to Ukraine. Victory is just right around the corner. And it's the same people, by the way, who told us for 20 years in Afghanistan, right? Let's just spend more money. And we lost $2.2 trillion of US taxpayer money, 6,000 American lives for the country, and it's in worse shape right now as before. It's ruled by the same lunatics, right, that run around wearing beach towels on their heads, and like they're head choppers. Those people. And so, but if you look at these generals and whoever claims to be an expert at their background, right, they sit on the boards of the military industrial complex. They actually profit from arming Ukraine. They profit from dead Ukrainians and dead Russians. And that's what happens because you're not allowed to tell the truth. It is only on networks like the new media networks like yours that I am free to speak. You give me airtime. I'm no longer invited in those legacy networks because they don't want to hear the alternative, the real analysis. They don't want to hear the truth. They would rather keep pumping the U.S. taxpayer for more cash so that Zelensky and his corrupt regime can build golden toilets in their apartment. I assume your audience heard that, right? About the corruption scandal and all those things. And I've said it for years. Ukraine is just like Russia, right? It's just as corrupt as Russia. And Zelensky is miniature Putin because he also authorized assassinations. He outlawed all political opposition. He's not a legitimate president because his term expired back in May, and he does not want to hold elections. And so they're basically taking us for suckers, Americans, with this conflict.
And then, so from global news, let's shift now to domestic policy as well. So there are a number of things going on right now within just our country. And of course, it's easy to talk about the 30,000-foot view of, hey, we want to keep our freedoms. Well, we know we can do that through hard work, prayer, voting, securing our elections, but also rallying, the base. And without even saying how I think the base could be rallied, do you have any thoughts on what can really rally the base that we can make sure that this midterm election in 2026 is victorious for us?
I actually do. What we need to do is get people like myself and like there are plenty of immigrants in this country, legal, honest immigrants who appreciate this country. They ran away. They fled those systems, right? There are people from Cuba. There are people from Russia, from China. We need to present our stories and tell the truth about the destructive nature of these socialism and this and all the lies, right? And open people's eyes, especially with the young people, right, who are so gullible, who have been indoctrinated in American universities in the ideologies that effectively anti-American ideology. And so we just need to go and educate people and make sure that they vote the right way, that they know the truth, right? Because regular people, I think people like you and me, like in your base and like MAGA people, they're actually very smart. They already know about the danger of socialism and communism. But it's the young people, believe it or not, smart young people, but they've been indoctrinating. And it's almost like not their fault, but they are so brainwashed, just like I was brainwashed when I was a little girl. And it's only because of my mother who didn't agree with the communism. So parents now need to really tell the truth to their children, and people who are like MAGA people. And I know it's very difficult. Like you can basically no longer talk like to a leftist person because they're unreasonable. All they do is like they cannot argue on merits. They cannot hold the conversation. So they start attacking you and say these things deplorable or whatever. But we need like debate teams like to stand up, some education centers where we can, and I know Turning Point already does this sort of thing, but we need more people like Charlie Kirk who are able to calmly explain to the intelligent but brainwashed people the how amazing American system is and how dangerous the socialist and communist system is.
100%. And it's detoxing from that brainwashing, from that indoctrination that needs to happen, because in the city that you're in New York City, it was only just north of 1 million people out of 8 million people that got Mamdani into office there. There was about 846,000 that voted for Cuomo. But yeah, it only took a million plus that were indoctrinated that said, yeah, let's go with this. But they'll realize probably how terrible it is to go that route. And not only socialism and communism, let's go with all the isms. We don't like deep stateism. We don't like globalism. We don't like mass migration ism. Like, we don't want any of that crap. Let's be honest about it, right? Right?
Absolutely. And look, these people who came and his team, right, who came to power, the jihadi, I call them because and I'm not like afraid of the word because there's evidence of Mamdani, speaking with these imams who want death on America, right? And they are not even lying. They are being straightforward with us what they want to do. They want to turn this country into a radical Muslim country and have Sharia law, govern this amazing land. And if you saw videos, what happened, the day after the election on Times Square, there were like hundreds of military age Islamic men, like, praying. And we know, even in the intelligence community, we know that radicalization is a big problem. These people come in order to convert Americans into these anti-American ideology, right? And so it's not going to happen overnight, but they're going to do it gradually. And if you look at how they're going about it, they're extremely patient, right? They first get elected into like Mamdani was an assemblyman, right? You would think that it's just kind of like a nothing burger position, but eventually these people move up. But we have an excellent example. Look at Europe. Look what happened to Europe. The Islamification of Europe, and they're now in key position. Not only the mayor of London, but the next prime minister, we assess, is going to be a Muslim, and it's not just a regular like good. A moderate type Muslims, because what happens is these are radicals. Because the normal Muslims, and I have normal Muslim friends, right? There are a lot of Albanians in New York, actually, and they're kind of secular Muslims. And my friend, his name is, well, I'm not going to say his name. I don't want him to lose your job. But his name is John, let's say. He says, Rebekah, this guy, Mom, that he's not even a real Muslim. He's just an a-hole, like he's a jihadi. Because so I want to separate religions are welcome America, but not the radical kind that want to kill America, that want to educate or brainwash rather a whole bunch of foot soldiers. They're going to kill Americans. And that's already happening. And that's why President Trump closed the border, and he wants to stop all that migration, and he wants to deport these people. And I say, let's go for it. Let's get people who are not down with American values, who came here to turn America into, pardon me, the shithole that even the president said that they came from. Let's get them all out of here so we can keep our country free, and so we can keep our country normal, and so that others do not take advantage of Americans and don't kill Americans.
If you're just joining us, this is Rebekah Koffler. You can actually check her out on X as well. And Rebekah, it's a mic drop left and right with what you're saying right now. And again, this is, like you said, this information you're sharing would not ever make it on mainstream media. And that is the clear difference between conservative media and what that crap is on the left. It's a bunch of false narrative lies that we don't want to have as a part of our country. We hope that everything works out for our nation, but we have to stick to our truth here. And the truth is simple: God, family, country, freedom, truth, justice, and the American way. Your thoughts, since you have been involved with, some in the intelligence community, though, your thoughts about the CIA, the FBI, the DOJ in America right now, and getting people within those organizations on the right side of history, because we know that there's still deep state going on within that. It's terrible.
These deep state, Matthew, they're even more dangerous than the KGB. the CIA has gotten so bad, and I served in the DIA, but I was exposed to the entire intelligence community. I actually, I briefed during the Obama's administration, his National Security Council. I briefed NATO. I briefed multiple U.S. commanders. But what happened eventually is this deep state started concocting the whole non-existent Russia collusion theory to basically frame President Trump and prevent him from becoming president, and then impeach them. And so the reason why CIA and FBI and a lot of these three-letter agencies are worse than the KGB is this. When I was growing up, we were terrified of KGB. We knew that you can't speak the truth, right? You can only either whisper, or you can do like what we call kitchen conversations. You can only share, like my mother, before me and my sister would go to school, she said us, three things: do not believe everything that your teachers tell you. She wanted to prevent us from being brainwashed, and do not share your family, what your family talks about, right? And so they were concocting all of those non-existent collusion theories. The real threat, they were not doing their job, right? Because look at this, China is now producing more of certain types of military hardware than we do. Russia is producing more drones in Ukraine than the United States, and the type of drones, right? This is why, and if I may, I want to mention the article that I wrote. Putin has in the Telegraph, British Telegraph. I can still write. That's a conservative paper. It still takes my pieces. Putin has a strategy that would make NATO defenses useless. And why is that? It's because the Russians outproduce what the United States and Europe produces in terms of cheap drones with 50 to 60 ratio, okay? And that's why Putin knows he doesn't play with a ball with President Trump. We have no leverage because he knows that he cannot fight in Ukraine, right? And Europeans cannot fight because as one anonymity, one official mentioned, European official, if actually a war, direct war between Russia and NATO were to break out, we would run out our defensive missiles in a matter of weeks, right? Because like I said, the ratio of Russian drone manufacturing vis-a-vis our defensive missiles is 50 to 60, right? Basically what happens is we strike $1,000 targets with $1 million assets. So it's pure mathematics. And Putin is actually an economist in addition to being an attorney. And that's why he hired as his defense minister an economist without military background, so that they figure out the algorithm and they believe that they have the answer. And that's why they can only finish that conflict and have an agreement based on his terms, on Putin's requirements. And that is because we were sleeping at the wheel. We were sleeping at the wheel, our deep state not doing their job, actually tracking foreign threats and developing counter strategies. Because weapons and technology, it doesn't win wars, right? We learned it in Afghanistan, Libya, Syria. We have the best military in the world, right? But we ran away out of Afghanistan because the homemade gadgets, I call them, the IEDs, the improvised explosive devices, they were mangling our forces. They were maiming our forces, mangling our military hardware. We have a petting zoo in one of the military bases where we collect military hardware from the battlefield to analyze it. You should see some of those tanks with like bottoms blown up by an IED. And that's what the adversary does because they're very smart. Just because Putin is, vicious doesn't mean they're not smart. Putin is extremely smart. And our deep state, wasn't doing their job. And even now, when Pete Hegseth and Tulsi Gabbard are in charge, it's only like a handful of political appointees that are loyal to them. But the bottom, right, and there's so many of them. There's like multiple ratio. They are still the deep staters because it's a lifetime of employment for them. You can't fire these people, and that's the danger. So we need to revamp the whole hiring process, right? This whole GN system. President Trump is trying to do that, but it's extremely difficult. They're like cockroaches there. They think that they want to preserve that, the gravy train, whether it's a gravy train in Ukraine for the deep state and for the elites or whatever. They want to preserve status quo, and President Trump wants to uproot that dangerous system, the deep state. So let's hope for the best.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we're doing. We're hoping for the best with that. And then also, let's just go with Congress. How about term limits? I mean, this is not a career politician thing. $174,000 a year of our money, and then most of them aren't doing the greatest of work for we the people. So outside of that, let's go 30,000-foot view before we see Carolyn Levitt as we await the press conference there. Again, this is Rebekah Koffler. Rebekah, you escaped communism from the USSR. Is that the reason why you're diving into the truth like this and want to talk about it, because it's so awful and you don't want America to see what it was like in the USSR?
Absolutely, because, like I said, the socialism led to the collapse of the country in 1991. USSR no longer exists, right? And so that's what eventually would happen in America if we stop that. And the reason that the Soviets were able to maintain that system, right? Even though it only benefited the under 9% of the population who were communists. And they had different stores they had different grocery stores. They had everything in their stores. We had nothing. They were treated in separate hospitals, right? With all the medications and all the new technology that they used the hard currency to purchase from the West, because it's not producing anything. It was producing wonderful missiles, but by golly, they couldn't produce a toaster, right? Or microwave for that matter. And so the same thing will be happening here. And the reason why the Soviets were able to do that is because of all the lies, because they keep telling these lies. Oh, it's going to be free. It's going to be nice, right? But again, when everything is free, nothing is available, and the school indoctrinates the people, right? So people start believing it. And on the other hand, there's a very strong apparatus, right? Putin, he's vicious, and he's a trained KGB officer. And that was for centuries like that in Russia. There's a very centralized, strong secret police, domestic, security services that will squash any kind of, free speech and telling the truth. And that's what I see going on here, except instead of the secret, but even the media right now, American media, New York Times, CNN, even Fox News to some extent has become the Pravda of America, because they're not telling us the truth. And so we are marching on that dangerous pathways. And I just want to warn Americans that this is a very, very dangerous pathway. It all sounds nice and wonderful. Who wouldn't want, everything free and rent, free? But listen to what Mamdani said. He said, we want to get rid of bad landlords. If we think that, and by we, he means the state. If we think that the landlord is not taking care of the tenants very well, right? We're going to take over that property, but that is private property, right? And that's what the Soviets did. We did not have private property at all. The state, everything, grocery store to the bus to everything. And we just can't have it happen here, because if you have who's going to invent? There's going to be no Jeff Bezos, right, who invented the Amazon. And yes, he's a leftist, but everybody uses Amazon, right? So it's an achievement. There's going to be no Steve Jobs who has created an iPhone. There's going to be no strong pharmaceutical industry that has found, cure for AIDS, for example. And yes, pharmaceutical industry has its own deficiencies too. Capitalism is not perfect. Nobody said it's perfect, but it's the best system out there in the world. So, and we have cured, America has cured effectively, cancer, let's say, with the exception of some rare types, right? Like pancreatic cancer. But people with cancer can live now because we have tremendous pharmaceutical industry and other benefits. But once you stop people from having and enjoying the fruit of their labor, they're going to stop creating. Innovation is just going to drop. This is why you see Russia and China, they usually steal our technology, including military technology. The Chinese send students here to America who study at our universities, right? Because they can't possibly think. Because when you are not a free thinker, right, you can't be innovative because you're oppressed. You're constantly oppressed because you are thinking. And believe me, I lived that, right? Because you're constantly afraid of of saying something wrong and a neighbor reporting on you. You're constantly looking right, behind your shoulder, who is listening, like a neighbor is gonna tell the authorities. And so you can't possibly, when you're not free, you can't innovate, you can't create, a toaster or a microwave. And it seems like such a staple, right? In America, there's so many things that are wonderful. But once it's gonna all stop. Once you start appropriating, confiscating is the word, the fruits of your labor. People are smart, right? Nobody's gonna, if there's you're not gonna wake up at 5 a.m. in the morning and work your butt off if you're not gonna be paid for it. So everybody ultimately becomes lazy, right? They just pay lip service. We pretended to work. If they pretend that they pay us, we're gonna pretend to work. And nobody cares. That's why the service is people are gonna become very apathetic. I don't know if it's the word apathy, will set in, and the whole society eventually collapses. And that's the danger that I absolutely do not want to happen in America. And look, I don't want my children to live in the same situation that I lived. And my American children, I want them to be American and enjoy the foundational truths that the founding fathers so graciously gave us.
Again, we the people, God, family, country, freedom, truth, justice, in the American way. That's what it's about. And we know, to your point, Rebekah, that there are a number of entities, ideologies that are trying to take down the lead country of the earth, the country that is about freedom, the country that in a majority here are Christian. There's obviously other faiths, but the point is that these other systems, they just want to tear it down, destroy it. We know that. We know we're preaching to the choir right now. But again, this is information that I believe is good to talk about because, again, it is an information war, just like, Alex Jones over there at InfoWars. It's true. That's a great name for something. InfoWars. That's what it's about. And finally, I just want to ask you, Rebekah, as we get ready to hear from Carolyn Levitt, swaying the court of public opinion. Because we know that the left-wing media has always swayed you to the left, or at least many people to the left. That's that brainwashing aspect. How important is it for citizen journalism and conservative media to have a voice in the United States of America?
It is extremely important. I mean, one of the first things that the Soviets did was to make all the media state media, right? So they can brainwash. And so if we did not have new media, like RSBN, I don't know, War Room, right? Like the Charlie Kirk Show, like the citizen journalist, and we would not be able to learn the truth. They would hide it. And if President Trump did not win, we would have never found out everything that the deep state did, spying on Americans, and doing all these things. Basically, that KGB does. The deep state is basically using Putin's playbook against conservatives. I mean, look, religion, they were after Catholics, right? But if the people don't know, the Catholic, remember they were the IRS was after Catholics, the parents were called the terrorists and the extremists. And I had experience with that. I had two kids in the public school system until we pulled them out and put them to Catholic school. So if there's no new media and no citizen journalists, then the people would not know that that goes on, and they would think everything is fine. And then one day, all of a sudden, you're converted to this grand, the workers and peasants paradise, as we call it. And but what happens, when they say, "Oh, everything is free, everybody's equal," yeah, everybody is equal except them. There's a small group of people, right? The elites, they're in charge of everything, and everybody else is equal, and they have nothing. It's only through conservative media, the new media, like some legacy media calls themselves conservative, but oh boy, they're not conservative at all. Because I want to say they don't tell the truth. They lie. Maybe I don't even know what that means, conservative. We just need people to tell the truth.
And that's exactly what it is. And I'm going to read that quote again that the actor Kevin Sorbo, he played in Reagan and all these other movies as well. He said, he quoted George Orwell. He's saying, "The further a society drifts from the truth, the more it will hate those who speak it." So to your point, Rebekah, we are on the truth train. And we know that President Trump and many on the America First train back in 15, 16, 17, 18, all the way through, we all support people that represent truth, right? And so as long as people stay on the truth train, we go for it. But if people go off to the side and we still want something else, like maybe more deep state arrest, maybe a number of other things, it's an interesting situation to navigate. But really, you have to be loyal to truth, right?
Absolutely. And if you're loyal to truth, if you speak the truth, then you can make a reasonable, logical assessment of a situation. Then you make a decision. Who do you vote? What system do you support? Right? But if you don't have the truth, then you're misguided. That's when you vote for people like Ilhan Omar, who wants to destroy America. That's when you vote for Mamdani, or that's the situation that you get into in the Minneapolis, right? And because you are just not playing with the full deck if you don't have the truth.
It's so true.
So I want to mention, you mentioned Christianity, right? There's a reason why that are based and rooted in Western civilization and Christianity, they are prosperous. Look at the map, right? Look at the map and look at the countries that are, based on other religions, whatever those religions are, and look at, are they prosperous countries? Do they people, tell the truth? Do they thrive? No. Like, there's a whole continent, if you think about it, that is such an economic mess. They kill people. They behead people. I mean, you constantly hear the news, they kidnap, the girls, in Nigeria, or whatever. I mean, these are like, not even comprehensible. It's unconscionable, some of what those cultures do to their own fellow humans. So it's only Christian-based countries that are humane and prosperous.
It's true, but also a lot of the people in these countries, like Nigeria, like China, if they are a person of faith, maybe a Christian, they can't even practice their faith. So this really isn't about the people of these countries. It's more about, in my opinion, any government or any dictator or anybody that's going against common sense values for the people. No freedom. No, you can't believe in a God. Here's communism. That's your God, right? So
absolutely,
it really is the 8 billion versus the 800. I'm on the 8 billion side. Free world. Let's go freedom, right? Let's go freedom, Rebekah.
Absolutely. And that's why all these authoritarian regimes, the first thing they do, they outlaw God and religion. That's what the Bolsheviks did in 1917 in Russia, in the Soviet Union. They outlawed God. With the country became atheist. And so we were not allowed to go to church to pray to God. And so my grandmother, actually, who was a believer, and the Russian people were believers until they were Christian, until the Bolsheviks took over, killed the Tsar, and they made the country atheist. But my grandma was a true believer Christian. She and my mom secretly baptized me, but I didn't know about it at all until I came to America and I became an adult. That my parents told me, because God is these authoritarian regimes, they view God as dangerous, because if you believe in God, because they want you to believe in the state. And even some of the American politicians, they said the freedoms come from the state and not from God. And that's, to me, a frightening thing, because these are the words of socialist, communist, and Bolsheviks, and I can't believe they are in U.S. government, and they say those things, and some people believe them.
Rebekah, I'm so glad Jesus gets the last word at the end of the book. Rebekah Koffler, you're a rock star. Where can people follow you online?
I'm on all social media, especially on X, formerly Twitter. My handle is at Rebekah0132. 0132 is a code for U.S. intelligence in the GL system.
All right. Thank you so much, Rebekah, for spending about 45 minutes with us.
Absolutely. God bless everybody.
God bless you.